I was Michael Carter, a man who had built his life around blueprints and dreams, designing spaces where others found their homes and hopes. At 48, I was at the peak of my career, my name whispered in the architectural circles of the city like a quiet promise of innovation. Yet beneath the polished surface a storm brewed, a diagnosis that had shattered the illusion of time's endlessness. Terminal illness. 3 words that unraveled the fabric of my carefully ordered world, leaving me to wrestle with the weight of my mortality in silence. Anna Bennett lived 2 blocks down from my studio, in an apartment filled with light and laughter. Or at least that was the story she told the world. She was an art teacher at the local high school, a woman whose hands stirred color and creativity in young minds, but whose eyes often betrayed a quiet loneliness. I had known Anna for years, longer than I cared to admit, our lives woven together by shared struggles and unspoken affection. We were 2 souls orbiting the same small world, tethered by memories yet separated by the walls we built from fear and hesitation. Our friendship was a delicate balance of presence and absence. We had met in college, thrown together by a random seating arrangement in a drawing class, and from there, a bond had formed through late-night conversations and mutual solace in art and architecture. Life had pulled us apart and back again, like tides chasing the moon's pull, but we had never crossed the line into something more, never dared to speak the words that hovered just beneath the surface. I often watched Anna from the corner of my eye, admiring the way she moved through her days with grace despite the quiet ache I sensed she carried. She was a woman who gave of herself endlessly, pouring love into her students and community, yet I knew she held a loneliness that no brushstroke or canvas could truly capture. I envied her strength and feared the distance growing between us, a chasm widened by my own inability to reach out. That morning, as the city hummed with its usual rhythm, I found myself standing outside the small cafe where Anna spent her afternoons grading papers and sketching ideas for her students. The bell above the door jingled as she entered, a familiar presence that stirred a mixture of comfort and regret in my chest. I wanted to speak, to bridge the silence that had grown between us, but the words tangled in my throat, caught between hope and despair. Anna looked up, her eyes meeting mine with a flicker of recognition and something deeper, something unspoken. She smiled, a tentative curve of lips that held years of shared history and quiet longing. I nodded in return, the gesture feeling both heavy and light at once, a fragile acknowledgement of the bond we had never fully embraced. She sat at the table by the window, the sunlight casting soft shadows across her face, as she unfolded a sheet of paper covered in charcoal sketches. I watched as her fingers traced the lines, her expression thoughtful and distant. It struck me then how much we had lost in the silence, the moments we had let slip through our fingers like grains of sand. I remembered the nights we had spent talking about dreams and fears, the promises we had made to each other in the privacy of our conversations, now faded into the background noise of everyday life. Those memories were a bittersweet reminder of the closeness we once shared and the distance we now maintained, an unspoken agreement to keep our feelings locked away. Anna's world was one of color and creation, yet I sensed a shadow beneath the surface, a quiet yearning for something more, something she never dared to name. I wondered if she felt the same pull I did, the magnetic force of a connection that had never fully blossomed but refused to fade. As I sat across from her, the familiar hum of the cafe around us, I felt the weight of my diagnosis pressing down like a silent storm. The ticking clock in my chest reminded me that time was no longer an ally, that the moments we had left were fragile and fleeting. Yet in that shared space, amidst the aroma of coffee and the soft murmur of conversations, I found a flicker of hope, a chance to reach out before the inevitable. Anna looked up again, her eyes searching mine with a mixture of curiosity and caution. The vulnerability in her gaze mirrored my own, an unspoken question hanging between us like a fragile thread. I wanted to tell her everything, to confess the fears and regrets that haunted me, but the walls I had built over the years stood firm. Instead, I offered a small smile, a gesture of quiet solidarity and unspoken understanding. It was enough for now, enough to remind us both that beneath the surface of our separate lives, our hearts still beat in time with the memories we shared. As the afternoon light shifted, casting a golden glow over the city, I realized that our story was far from over. The threads that bound us were still there, fragile but unbroken, waiting for a chance to be woven into something new. And in that moment, amidst the quiet hum of the cafe and the soft brushstrokes of life unfolding around us, I made a silent promise to myself, to find a way to bridge the distance, to speak the words that had long been left unsaid. Because Anna Bennett was more than a friend. She was the quiet heartbeat of a life I had yet to fully live, the companion I had always longed for but never dared to claim. And as the city breathed around us, I knew that whatever time I had left, I would spend it trying to close the gap between us, to turn our shared memories into something real, something lasting. The day wore on, and with it, the gentle rhythm of life continued. People moving through the streets, the soft murmur of conversations, the distant sound of children playing in the park. Yet for me, everything had shifted. The diagnosis that once felt like a sentence now felt like a call to action. A reminder that the moments we had left were precious beyond measure. I watched Anna gather her papers, her movements deliberate and graceful, and I felt a surge of determination. Tomorrow, I told myself, tomorrow I would find the courage to speak, to open the door to whatever lay beyond the silence. Because the years we had shared, the struggles and joys, the quiet understanding that had always existed between us, deserved more than quiet distance. As she stood to leave, our eyes met once more, and in that brief connection, I saw the flicker of something hopeful, a chance to rewrite the story we had been too afraid to live. I nodded again, a silent promise passing between us, fragile but real. And so, in the heart of the city, amidst the ordinary moments of an ordinary day, two lives poised on the edge of change began to stir with the possibility of something more. The unspoken bond that had shaped us for years was ready to be acknowledged, fragile and tentative, yet full of the quiet power that only true connection can hold. I was Michael Carter, a man facing the end of his story, but also the beginning of something new. And Anna Bennett, with her gentle eyes and quiet strength, was the key to unlocking the chapters yet to come. The following Tuesday, the city felt different, less hurried, as if the world had softened its edges in anticipation of something unspoken. I found myself standing outside Anna's apartment building, heart pounding in a way it hadn't in years. The weight of my diagnosis pressed heavily on me, but beneath it was a firmer resolve, a determination to break the silence that had long defined our relationship. Today I was going to tell her the truth, to offer her something I had held inside for too long. Anna opened the door before I could even knock, her expression a mix of surprise and cautious warmth. "Michael," she said softly, her voice carrying the familiar comfort of old friendship but tinged with something more fragile. I noticed the slight tremor in her hands as she stepped aside to let me in. The apartment smelled faintly of turpentine and jasmine, a blend that reminded me of afternoons spent watching her paint. We sat across from each other at the small kitchen table, the silence stretching between us like a fragile bridge. I had rehearsed what I wanted to say countless times, but now the words felt heavier, as if they carried the weight of every missed opportunity and unspoken feeling between us. I cleared my throat, searching for the right moment. "Anna, I have something I need to tell you," I began, my voice betraying the tension I felt. She looked at me with curious eyes, her fingers nervously tracing the rim of a coffee cup. "I've been diagnosed with an illness. It's serious. Terminal." Her breath hitched, and for a moment the room seemed to shrink around us. The words hung in the air, stark and raw, breaking through years of unspoken truths. Anna's face softened, a mixture of shock and sorrow crossing her features. "Michael," she whispered, reaching out to place a tentative hand over mine. I squeezed her hand gently, feeling the tremor in her touch, and the surge of emotion that connected us. "I didn't want to tell you like this," I confessed, "but I couldn't keep it from you any longer. And there's more. I want to give you something, a gift. Something that says what I never could." Anna's eyes searched mine, a flicker of confusion mixed with something deeper, hope perhaps, or fear. "What kind of gift?" she asked softly. I reached into my bag and pulled out a small leather-bound journal, its cover worn and familiar. "This," I said, placing it carefully on the table between us. "It's filled with memories, sketches, letters, everything I've never said. I want you to have it, to understand what you've meant to me." She hesitated, her fingers hovering over the journal as if afraid to touch the weight of my confession. "Michael, I don't know what to say," she murmured, her voice trembling. "This is unexpected." "It's everything," I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside. I want you to know how much you've mattered, how much you still do. I'm giving you this because I don't have much time left, but I want our story to live beyond that." Anna swallowed hard, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I never knew," she whispered. "All this time, I thought I was alone in feeling something. But you never said." "I was afraid," I admitted. "Afraid of ruining what we had, afraid of losing you. But now I realize that silence was the thing that almost broke us." The room seemed to hold its breath as we sat there, the weight of years and the imminence of goodbye pressing down on us. Our conversation faltered, words tangling in the space between hope and grief. I could see the conflict in Anna's eyes, the pain of missed chances mingling with the fragile possibility of connection renewed. "I don't want to lose you," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I don't know how to be with you like this. You don't have to decide anything now," I told her gently. "Just knowing you're here, that we can talk like this, means more than I can say. I want to share this time with you, however it unfolds." Anna nodded slowly, a tentative smile breaking through the tears. "Then let's start there. No promises, just presence." I felt a flicker of something I hadn't allowed myself to feel in a long time: hope. It was fragile and uncertain, but it was there, woven through the shared silence and the journal resting between us. The gift I had brought was more than pages and ink. It was a bridge across the years of quiet longing, a chance to rewrite the story we had both been too afraid to live. Over the next hour we talked in fits and starts, memories spilling out alongside the weight of the present. I told her about the diagnosis again, the doctor's words, the ticking clock I could no longer ignore. She shared her fears, the loneliness she had carried in silence, and the love she had never dared to name. Each revelation was a step closer, a fragile dance of vulnerability and courage. At one point, Anna reached for the journal, opening it to a page filled with a sketch of a building I had designed years ago, a place we had both visited in our youth. "You drew this?" she asked, tracing the lines with her finger. "Yes," I said, my voice soft. "It's where we first talked about dreams and fears, where I first felt connected to you." Her eyes met mine, and in that moment the years of silence seemed to dissolve. The awkwardness and fear gave way to something raw and real, a tether that pulled us together even as the future loomed uncertain. "I don't know what will happen," I said finally, "but I want you to have this gift, to carry it with you. It's everything I never said, everything I want you to remember." Anna closed the journal gently, her hand steady now as she held it close. "Thank you, Michael, for trusting me." We sat in the quiet that followed, the weight of the moment settling around us like a fragile promise. Outside, the city carried on, unaware of the fragile new beginning unfolding within the walls of that small apartment. As I left that evening, the journal tucked safely under Anna's arm, I felt a tentative peace. The road ahead was uncertain, filled with fear and pain, but also with the possibility of connection and healing. We had stepped across the threshold of goodbye, not with grand declarations, but with a gift born of love and regret, hope and sorrow intertwined. Anna's silhouette lingered in my mind as I walked home, a reminder that sometimes the most profound farewells come wrapped not in finality, but in the courage to speak the unspeakable and to offer the heart in all its trembling honesty. Anna sat at her kitchen table late that night, the leather-bound journal resting open before her like a map to a world she had only glimpsed from afar. The soft glow of the lamp cast warm shadows across the pages, where Michael's handwriting flowed, fluid and familiar, yet laden with the weight of things left unsaid. She traced the ink with trembling fingers, each word stirring memories and emotions she had buried deep. The first pages were filled with sketches, buildings and places that held meaning for both of them. There was the old library where they had spent countless afternoons studying, the park bench where they had shared whispered hopes, and the small cafe where their friendship had blossomed. Each drawing was accompanied by a letter, a fragment of Michael's heart laid bare. Anna's eyes lingered on a letter dated nearly a decade ago, one that spoke of dreams they had once shared. "I remember the night we sat beneath the stars, planning our futures as if time were endless," Michael had written. "You talked about teaching art, bringing color to young lives, and I dreamed of designing spaces that breathed life into the city. We were so full of hope then." Her breath caught as she read those words, the distance between then and now folding in on itself. She turned the page, revealing a confession she hadn't expected. A letter where Michael admitted his growing feelings for her, feelings he had never voiced aloud. "I was afraid to say it," he wrote. "Afraid that speaking would shatter the fragile balance between us. But you have always been the quiet pulse beneath my days, the presence I longed for but never dared to claim." Anna's heart ached with a bittersweet mixture of regret and gratitude. She too had harbored feelings, quietly nurturing them in the spaces between their conversations and shared silences. But fear had kept her mute, and now, reading his words, she felt both the sting of what might have been and the warmth of what still could be. The journal was more than a collection of memories. It was a map of their shared journey. Joys and sorrows, laughter and tears, moments that had shaped them and moments they had nearly lost. There was a sketch of the city skyline at dusk, a reminder of the nights they had wandered its streets, dreaming aloud. Another page held a letter recounting a time when Michael had faltered, grappling with the first signs of his illness, and Anna had been there, steady and unwavering. As Anna read, she felt the weight of his vulnerability settle around her. This was a man who had lived with quiet courage, who had hidden his pain behind a facade of strength, and who now entrusted her with the deepest parts of his soul. The journal was a testament to love that had never been easy, but that had endured through silence and distance. She paused on a page filled with sketches of leaves and flowers, accompanied by a letter where Michael spoke of hope. "Even as the days grow shorter," he wrote, "I hold on to the light we've shared, the possibility of new beginnings. This book is my way of reaching out, of saying that you have been my greatest gift." Tears slipped down Anna's cheeks as she closed the journal gently, holding it close to her heart. The gift was more than words and drawings. It was a bridge across the chasm of time and silence, a healing balm for wounds that had never fully healed. In the days that followed, Anna found herself returning to the journal again and again, each reading peeling back another layer of their story. She visited the places Michael had drawn, walking the paths they had once shared, seeing the world through his eyes. The library's worn shelves, the park's quiet benches, the cafe's familiar hum. They all held new meaning now, woven with the threads of memory and love. At school, Anna found herself inspired by Michael's courage, sharing his story in subtle ways with her students, encouraging them to find their voices and embrace vulnerability. The journal had become a catalyst for her own healing, a reminder that love and loss were intertwined threads in the tapestry of life. One afternoon, as the sun filtered through the studio windows, Anna sat with the journal open to a page where Michael had drawn a simple sketch of two hands reaching for each other. Beneath it, his words echoed in her mind. "We are never truly alone when we hold each other in our hearts." She reached out and touched the page, feeling a connection that transcended time and circumstance. The gift he had given her was a lifeline, a testament to the power of honesty and the enduring nature of love. Though the future remained uncertain, Anna felt a newfound strength blossoming within her. Michael's gift had unlocked something she had long kept hidden, a willingness to embrace the unknown, to cherish the moments they still had, and to honor the love they shared in whatever form it might take. In the quiet hours of the evening, Anna often found herself whispering a silent thank you to the man who had trusted her with his heart. The journal was more than a farewell. It was a beginning, a chance to rewrite the story they had both yearned to live. And as she closed the leather cover one last time that night, Anna knew she was ready to face whatever came next, carrying Michael's words and love with her like a beacon in the darkness. The days that followed were a quiet reckoning for Anna, a slow unfolding of grief and grace that settled deep into her bones. She carried Michael's journal with her everywhere, a fragile talisman against the growing void his illness threatened to carve between them. Each page was a doorway back to their shared past, but also a guidepost for the uncertain road ahead, one she now had to walk without knowing exactly where it might lead. She found herself wandering the city with a new purpose, revisiting places that had shaped their friendship and now felt like sacred ground. The old library, its shelves heavy with stories and dust, greeted her like an old friend. She ran her fingers along the spines of books they had once pored over together, feeling the echo of their conversations ripple through the quiet stacks. Sitting on the worn wooden bench by the window, she closed her eyes and imagined Michael beside her, the warmth of his presence a balm to the ache in her chest. The park where they had shared so many afternoons was no less poignant. Anna traced the familiar paths, the crunch of leaves beneath her feet mingling with the distant laughter of children. She paused at the bench where they had once confided their dreams and fears, the place where Michael had first hinted at feelings he never fully voiced. Sitting there, she let the silence stretch around her, filling it with memories and unspoken words. At the cafe where their friendship had deepened, Anna found herself lingering longer than usual, nursing a cup of tea as she reread letters from the journal. The barista, who knew her by name, offered a quiet smile, sensing the weight she carried. Anna welcomed the small kindness, the ordinary gesture that tethered her to the present amid the swirling storm of emotions. Throughout these visits, Anna grappled with a swirling mix of sorrow and strength. Michael's farewell had opened a wound that throbbed with loss, but it also illuminated a path toward acceptance. She realized that grief was not a singular feeling but a tapestry woven from threads of regret, love, and hope. And in that tapestry she found room for forgiveness, of herself, for the years she had kept her feelings hidden, and of Michael, for the silence that had defined them. Nights were the hardest. Alone in her apartment, the shadows seemed to press in, and the journal lay on her bedside table like a beacon. Sometimes she would open it and read passages aloud, letting Michael's words fill the quiet. Other times she would simply hold it close, feeling the weight of his love and the courage it took to share it. One evening she found herself writing in a notebook of her own, tentative words flowing onto the page as she wrestled with the emotions that had no easy outlet. She wrote about their friendship, the what-ifs, and the moments that still shimmered with possibility. Writing became a way to hold on to Michael's presence, to keep their story alive even as the future grew uncertain. Anna also reached out to close friends, sharing fragments of her journey and finding solace in their support. The shared grief, the quiet conversations about love and loss, helped her feel less alone. She realized that while Michael's gift was deeply personal, its echoes resonated beyond their two lives, touching everyone who cared. At school, Anna's teaching took on new depth. She encouraged her students to embrace vulnerability in their art, to find their voices in brushstrokes and words. She shared stories of courage and honesty, inspired by the man whose farewell had transformed her own understanding of love and loss. Her classroom became a sanctuary, a place where healing and creativity intertwined. Through it all, Anna felt Michael's presence in subtle ways. In the rustle of leaves outside her window, the gentle creak of the apartment floorboards, the warmth of sunlight on her skin. These moments, small and often fleeting, were reminders that love endured beyond physical absence, that connection was not bound by time or circumstance. She thought often of the promises they had never spoken aloud, but now carried between them like invisible threads. The promise to forgive, to cherish, to hold on to the small moments that defined their shared history. And in those promises, Anna found a quiet strength, a willingness to face whatever came next with an open heart. One afternoon, as she sat in the park with the journal open on her lap, Anna noticed a father teaching his young daughter to draw. The girl's fingers trembled as she traced lines on the paper, her concentration fierce and tender. Anna smiled softly, reminded of the lessons Michael had taught her. Not just about art or architecture, but about the courage to be seen, to be vulnerable. She closed the journal gently and tucked it into her bag, feeling a sense of peace she hadn't known in weeks. The road ahead was uncertain, shadowed by illness and the fragility of life, but it was also filled with the possibility of healing and connection. As the sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the park, Anna stood and began to walk home, each step a quiet affirmation. She would carry Michael's gift with her always, not as a weight but as a light, a testament to love that had survived silence, a reminder that even in farewell, there was hope. That evening, Anna sat alone in the soft glow of her living room, the journal open on her lap like a fragile bridge to a world now distant yet achingly close. The room was quiet except for the faint ticking of the clock, a steady rhythm marking the passage of time that had grown so precious and scarce. She held the last letter Michael had written, the final pages filled with his familiar handwriting, the words that felt like a whispered presence in the stillness. Her fingers trembled slightly as she unfolded the letter, the paper worn from the many times she had traced its edges. The words were simple yet heavy with meaning, a farewell not marked by grand gestures, but by the quiet sincerity of a heart laid bare. Michael had written of love and loss, of the hope that even in parting, connection could endure. "Though I may not be by your side," he had penned, "know that you carry a piece of me with you always. Our story is not ended. It lives in the spaces between us, in every breath, every memory." Anna's breath caught as she read, a wave of emotion rising and falling within her. She felt the weight of his absence, the ache of goodbye, but also the lightness of a love that transcended the physical, that had found its place beyond time and form. The gift he had given her, the journal, the letters, the trust, was now hers to hold, a testament to a bond that no illness or distance could sever. She closed her eyes and imagined Michael's voice, steady and kind, speaking the words she had longed to hear. The quiet room seemed to pulse with his presence, filling the space with a warmth that chased away the cold shadow of loss. In that moment, Anna understood that farewell was not an end, but a transformation, a passing from one form of connection to another. The days that followed were filled with a gentle rhythm of remembrance and moving forward. Anna carried the journal with her as a talisman, a reminder of the man who had trusted her with his deepest truths. She found solace in the small rituals they had shared, the morning light filtering through the window, the scent of jasmine that lingered in her apartment, the soft murmur of the city outside. Friends gathered around her in quiet support, their presence a balm to the loneliness that sometimes crept in. They shared stories of Michael, laughter mingling with tears, the collective memory weaving a tapestry of love and loss. At times, Anna felt like she was walking through a dream, the edges blurred but the heart unmistakably real. One night, after a gathering with those who had known Michael, Anna sat on her couch, the journal resting beside her. The room was dim, the silence filled with the echo of voices and the lingering warmth of shared grief. She reached for the journal and opened it to the final pages, where Michael's words still breathed life into the quiet. Tears slipped down her cheeks as she whispered a thank you to the man who had given her so much more than memories. He had given her a chance to love and be loved, to forgive and be forgiven, to hold on to hope even in the face of goodbye. The farewell she had never expected had become a gift, one that transformed grief into a lasting remembrance. Weeks later, the city was alive with the promise of spring, the air tinged with the scent of blossoms and new beginnings. Anna stood among the guests at her son's wedding, the soft hum of celebration weaving through the night. She spotted a familiar face in the crowd, Michael, or rather the memory of him, vivid and present in her heart. As the music swelled, she found herself drawn to the dance floor, the journal tucked safely away but never far from her thoughts. The first notes of a song they had once dreamed of dancing to filled the air, and with a deep breath she stepped forward. Her partner was a kind man, steady and warm, but in her mind's eye she saw Michael's smile, the gentle strength that had always anchored her. They moved together beneath twinkling lights, the grass soft beneath their feet, and Anna felt the culmination of a journey that had begun with silence and hesitation. The dance was not just a celebration of love and life, but a tribute to the connection that had endured through time and trials. In that moment, she embraced the fullness of their story, the regrets, the hopes, the unspoken promises now realized. The applause that followed was a chorus of affirmation, a reminder that love in all its forms was worthy of celebration. Anna's heart swelled with a quiet joy, a recognition that some goodbyes were not endings but invitations to remember, to cherish and to carry forward. As the night wore on and the guests began to drift away, Anna stepped outside into the cool air, the journal now a part of her story as much as the memories it held. She looked up at the stars, their light distant but unwavering, and felt a peace she had never known before. Michael's farewell had come not with grand gestures or final words shouted into the void, but with the gentle sincerity of a love that refused to fade. And in that truth, Anna found the courage to keep moving forward, carrying their shared history like a flame against the dark. The dance they had longed for had finally come. Not as a missed moment in youth, but as a gift born of time, tenderness, and the enduring power of connection. And as Anna walked back through the softly glowing lights, she whispered a promise to herself and to the man who had changed her life, to keep the dance alive, no matter what lay ahead.